Welcome back. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, episode 173. Alright, so here's the deal. I think we're done, which is weird. I think we might be done with this series. I may have, just, not confirming, strong probability, I may have done a little research post last episode. Because to me it felt like the game was done. It felt like we ended it. But at the same time it was like, are we done? What just happened? Oh, that event ended. There we go. Yeah, so there we go. So you can kind of see how long it took me to kind of get through this. That was that festival, so we're done. Hey, Sigurd. No? No? Okay. It's because, I wasn't sure because we still had some quests. We had this mastery challenge. I mean, those are, the river raid thing, I don't know. Let's go visit that, maybe. But other than that, see, but I knew that, but I went everywhere. River D, and I thought we already did that. But let's just check one more time here. Not that it probably matters.
Up for some raiding?
Yeah, see, I already did all that. Yeah, we're not going to mess with that. I already went there, and I hit everything, and I still couldn't find it, so I don't know what... I mean, it's just a thing, so we're not going to get that one done. But it's weird because I ended last episode from a timing perspective like we would have stuff to do this episode. Because I wasn't exactly I wasn't exactly sure how this kind of all worked. But as I stated, I did do a little research, and things do just sort of end. is the moral of the story from what I could gather. So sadly, or mercifully, depending on how much you've enjoyed the series, we're not going to really do much this episode except me wrap it up. So this is definitely going to be a very short episode relative to some of the other ones. I'll try to not drone on too much as we wrap it up. Oh, see, I really need, when I do these wrap-ups, I really need to think about what I want to say before we get into it. That way I'm not just rambling. Okay. And how do I want to do this so you're not just staring at like one screen that's just sort of... I don't want to just keep running around because that's going to feel weird anyways. But that's probably what we'll end up doing. Alright. I will start out by saying this. Was this a perfect game? Absolutely not. There are definitely some things that I think could be improved a little bit. Some of the flow of it. So I'm going to nitpick here, but I'm going to end on some very positive thoughts. But I'm going to start off a little negative, so stick with me. We're going to start off a little negative, but we're going to definitely end positive. There were some times where I wish it was more intuitive as far as just allowing the character to go and do what I wanted it to do. For example, one of those that always drove me. I mean, it's again nitpicking, but like when I'm standing on a breakable platform and I'm swinging my axe, you should know that I'm trying, especially when there's no one else around. You know what I'm trying to get to, right? So I think those were some things. I thought the anomaly leveling up, like we had to jump around. Those I liked those, but I liked them if they were about half the time. There were a couple times where I got very frustrated with them as far as like just how they worked, and it was like just a little long on those, which was kind of what are you going to do there? I thought from a combat perspective, again, nothing dramatic has changed this one versus the last couple in terms of how that worked. I do really wish that there was a way to more easily swap the bows. If they're going to allow us to, theoretically, so the way they've got this set up here, it's sort of the kind of the Grand Theft Auto approach, which is where you can carry every single kind of gun around. Kind of the same thing here is I could literally swap to any bow at any point, no matter where. I didn't have to be at like my home base. I could literally be anywhere and swap to any weapon, any armor that I wanted. The reason that I say I wish there was some quick swaps on the bows, and I really hope I did not play 173 episodes not knowing how to do that, because I want to feel like an absolute moron. But there was times where not so much the Predator bow being the sniper long distance bow. That one sort of was, you would use that one, and then that would, you didn't need to kind of change quickly. But the light, at least the way that I played it, the light bow and the hunter bow would have been really nice to have been able to do quick swapping between those. There were times where, I would infiltrate a castle or a camp or something like that, and I'd use my hunter bow to kind of pick people off, whatever. But then to get right into combat, if I was discovered, I had to go in, change it, things like that. So that would have been nice to have done that. Some of the side stuff, mainly the mysteries, I found them sometimes to be very challenging as far as what I was supposed to do. Like, there would be some comments, but then it would be like, what am I supposed to do? And you could do your vision here, but it wasn't always clear. Like, if I'm talking to somebody here at this tree, and I'm supposed to do something, and I do this, okay, well, what I'm supposed to do, especially for me, who I don't always pay attention to the conversations, but even then it wasn't always clear, they would give some sort of riddle, well, not intentional, but they would give essentially what amounted to a riddle, and I'd have to do something, way, kind of in this building, and it was kind of like, well, how the heck am I supposed to know that? So I found the couple examples. That was one, I think, early on in the game. The one with the girl with, her dad went to Lincoln to look for a job, and when the last leaf, kind of fell. The solution to that was me run up and hit the tree and knock the thing down. Well, I don't know. Maybe I didn't do my eagle vision enough or raven vision enough, whatever it's called now. Things like that. There was another one with I found like a body and the sword was, or something was missing, and it was like super foggy, and it said someone was playing with something or other. I don't remember the exact details, but it was like, what the heck, like where am I supposed to go? So I wish that on those sort of things it was clear what I was supposed to do. So that's something that would have been nice to have been a little bit clearer. What else? Again, we're sticking a little negative here, but we'll hopefully get more positive as we move along. It still feels weird to me that we didn't have an even number of the zealots. Like, come on, that's just my OCD is kicking in. Like, put somebody there so we can get the nice even, kind of thing. I'll think of probably more as we keep talking. So, positives. What did I like about this game? And at the very, again, give me a second here, and we'll get into really kind of some weighting, comparisons. How good was it really, sort of a thing. But specific to the game, some of the details I liked. This is a pro for me. And I know not everybody's this way. But because I knew a little bit about it coming in, as far as obviously the setting, and I didn't know details of the story or really, things like that. But one of the things that I had heard was there was a lot of comments on the length of the game. As I've said throughout the course of this multiple times, I like games that are long. I love those. I just love the games where you are, 75 hours in, and it's like, crap, we've got to... Oh, Petra, she doesn't talk to me anymore because I dumped her. Sorry. Where you're 75 hours in, and it's like, dude, we're not even close to being done with this. I love those types of games. That's just me. I don't like games that are just over. So another game that I am gonna use an example of another game that's on my channel here. Feel free to check it out if you want. I don't want to be too critical of it because, it was an okay. It wasn't my cup of tea, but it was a well done game. But the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart game, I felt like that was it was over so quick. We did it, it was like, I'd have to go back and look at the exact number, but I don't know if we even got to 20 episodes in that. I could be wrong on that. It may have been like 15. It was like crazy how short that was, and I think it when you have a games that are that short, you don't really have time to get immersed in it, and I just don't like those. So I loved how long of a game this was. I really did. And again, I know it's not for everybody. Some people like those games that are, you get in, boom, and you get through it. But again, how many truly sort of AAA games are out there that are worth playing? It's not like 50 of them come out a year. And so when one of those, for me, when one of those does come out, and I would absolutely consider this the Assassin's Creed games to be in that category. I want to spend time with them. So I liked the length of the story. I liked and within the story, I liked some of the intrigue. Who's the betrayer? Who should I side with? No one's a clear-cut, kind of choice. I liked that part of it. I mean, I could look at it later, I'm sure, to see, but I am curious to know, all the decisions that we made throughout the game. Which one of them truly impacted the story later on?
Eivor! Hello.
Because not all of them could. I know that not every single one of them could have. That's just too many variables to put into the game. But I'm guessing some of them did. I just would curious to know what some of those are. I could look it up, I'm sure, to see what mattered, what didn't, what my choice actually ultimately led to, what didn't. I think a couple ones we know, I'm guessing, if we remember the conversation we had with Sigurd regarding when he basically said, I'm stepping down from being the Jarl, he referenced some of those things. I think one of them was the decision with one of the villager conflicts where he came out and after he returned and was like, what are you doing? This is my job. I think that was one of them. There was another one. There was a couple. That's the only one that comes to my mind. But he referenced a couple of them. And so I think those decisions led to a different outcome. If I backed different people for some of those, Jarls and Kings and whatever, Eldermen, whatever it was, how much would that have changed? So I liked that. I liked that part of it as well. The setting. I mean, listen. The settings, the historical settings of the Assassin's Creed games have always been in my opinion, have always been kind of the star. Even obviously even there's been some popular assassin characters in the past. Obviously Ezio from Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood Revelations is still probably one of the most popular ones. Then you had some other ones, Kenway, Cassandra. I mean, you could kind of Bayek, you could kind of pick some of those. But for me, the setting has always been the star from the historical perspective. Get away, stupid fox. Oh, speaking of settings, one of the things was this a fox that we saved or something and brought back? I don't remember. One, I thought of a little bit of a negative, and this is just sort of the way the Assassin's Creed thing works. Is I think nobody is huge fans of the modern day storyline or setting, but it's just, I mean, that's sort of how the Assassin's Creed thing works, and I think that's why, for me, the endings are always a little conflicted because the endings always have a little bit. They're always heavier on the modern side of things than they are throughout the game, just because you kind of have to wrap up that story. So that's just sort of a weird change, kind of pace there. But anyways, and the setting, as I've said before, I love history, and one of my favorite periods in time is Viking Age, Dark Ages. And, I think I tried not to be too lectury during the game, but I think there were some points where I commented a little bit on some things, like the more recent one, the episode, I think actually last episode with Alfred and burning the cakes and stuff. That's not me looking that stuff up. In the moment. That's just because I love history. That's just a story that I knew just from reading and things like that about Alfred. So for me, it was really exciting to get to be in this world of a time period that I that I enjoy learning about. So I was very, very excited. I know some people were hoping that this game was going to be sort of a samurai type setting. I mean, I know that's a time frame that a lot of people had pushed for. And I'm sure it would have been a well done game as well. But I would have, if you would have given me the choice between maybe that or this setting, I would have picked this setting every single time. So there's that component to it as well. I do want to say how I want to give kudos to the team for the fact that, like last game, like Odyssey, but this one was that times. I mean, this game was so much longer than Odyssey, and this one was really up the ante. The fact that they essentially had every component of dialogue that was possible in this game. Not only did you have a man do it, but you had a woman do it. We obviously played as Eivor, as a male character. But you could have played the whole game as a female character. So do you think about all the dialogue that we did, all the dialogue that we didn't do? Because obviously in some of those conversations we could have picked, there was things where we could have picked 4 or 5 different options, even general conversation. So to think that they had not one person do that, but 2 is incredibly impressive. And I think it just goes to show you the commitment and the dedication that they put into wanting to make a good game, and one that's has some variety to it. So I tip my hat to you guys for Ubisoft for taking that step, because what you find sometimes with games where they allow you to pick a gender, or they allow you to do something like that, is your character doesn't talk. So and I think that is changing as games get more realize that that's sort of that's sort of kind of cheesy at this point. But some of the older games. So a game I've compared this to a little bit at the start was, in terms of just how much time I spent with it, was Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Now it's obviously we're talking years and years apart here. So it's a little bit easier to do what they did here now than in that game. But that game, you had dialogue interaction with every person, but your character never talked. And so that was, because you could pick, if you're a man, you're a woman, you could pick all these different, you could be like an elf, you could be like some sort of weird lizard thing. So that would have been a lot. But the fact that they had 2 people do that is quite impressive. So I really respect that decision to do it. Beautiful looking game. Beautiful looking game. I do wish. So there was when we talk about the settings within the game, because there was really 4 different places that we went to. Excuse me, 5. 5 different places that we went to. We had Norway. You had England, obviously. You had Vinland. And then you had Asgard and Jotunheim. Obviously, Norway was pretty cold and snowy and mountainy, and, that just was sort of that. England was, I obviously enjoyed England setting, was very nice. From a gaming perspective, the Seer stuff with the Asgard and Jotunheim stuff, that was interesting as far as a way to kind of have those multiple storylines going that can be independent, different settings, things like that. And I said this, I think, after maybe the Jotunheim one, which was, those are the length of those would make for a very nice sort of DLC. So I'm curious to see, as more DLC content comes out, which we'll touch on here in a little bit, as more DLC content comes out, what that, will they do any of that? Will there be more of that stuff? Because those were the length of them, because we really spread them out. And the reason I spread them out was I didn't want us to forget what was going on in the main game. Because we could have easily spent, probably 6, 7, 8 episodes maybe, knocking those out. Then you come back and it's like, wait, what's going on? And those were a little weird in general. So to me, too much of it at once was a little much. But also too, the reason I did that was it did kind of break up this storyline. I'm sure at times it probably got a little boring watching me just roam around the countryside, like picking up chests and doing stuff like that. And again, we're recording this how I play it. So I know not everybody would do that. Some people would just rush through the main story and they would ignore all the other side stuff. And I don't get why. I mean, it's in there. They took the time to put it in. You paid for it. Do it, right? Why rush through games to, is your game backup that long that you gotta I gotta get through this game as quickly as I can so I can get onto this mediocre game over here? No, if it's a good game, spend time with it. Anyways, I wasn't a huge fan of the Jotunheim Asgard stuff. It was a little weird, especially the Jotunheim stuff. It was a little weird for my taste. But it was interesting. It was, it was definitely not bad. I wish we could have spent a little bit more time in Vinland. Obviously, I think it was a brief storyline because the Vikings in their because we know the Vikings did settle for a time in North America. I mean, it wasn't wasn't permanent, so we know that there was that. So I think even the level that they showed in this game, as far as the penetration and the scope and the sophistication and infrastructure that was there was I think probably well beyond maybe what the Vikings did. But that was that, especially with the Native American part of it, that would have been interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that story, especially when we left Vinland. If you remember, Eivor gave one of the spheres to one of the Native American women. So I'd like to maybe see kind of what happened after that with that story. But I really liked the Vinland setting. Wish we could have spent more time there. Not that I didn't like the English setting. The southern part of England, kind of where we are now, Wessex, that sort of a thing. I like that. Wasn't crazy for the swamps. Wasn't crazy about it once we got kind of a little bit more north into Northumbria and York. Didn't like that setting as much. Just aesthetically, I just like being able to see this sort of a setting here more than some of the barren stuff. Whew, I feel like I need to take a breath. What else did I like about the game? The combat was nice. Like I said, the only thing we wish we could have had a bow swap. The combat was good. I know some people complain about that the combat is now too far from what some of the original Assassin's Creed stuff was, and I'm okay with that. I don't. I wasn't. Actually, to be fair, to be honest, I didn't like some of the other Assassin's Creed games where it did feel like I had to creep around and assassinate every single person that I encountered. So I actually like the more upfront more upfront combat approach. But you still have the option to assassinate people if you want. I just like not having to do that for every single person. What else have we got? I feel like I'm forgetting a ton of stuff. Let's go back in here. Let's see if anything triggers my mind. Obviously, they kept this sort of structure here where you kind of just keep killing people off. I do wish that once we figured out who someone is, you could go kill them. Like I think it was this one. I think it was this guy. One of these guys, I knew exactly where it was, but I had to uncover all the clues first. I was like, come on. So that was interesting. What else? I like the river raid. That was a nice. That was again just another way to sort of. I wish there was more of the river raids though. I'm gonna be honest. I do wish there was. You had 3 rivers, and again, there's so much in this game. You know, I almost feel guilty saying I wish there was more because it's like people hearing this are probably like, dude, do you know how long it took us to do what we did? Like we put hundreds of hours of content in there for you. But I wish there was more rivers to do the river raids on. Again, maybe that's coming. Maybe that's something down the road. We shall see. We shall see. You know, the skill thing here, you know, this was... I'm going to be honest. I was a little confused at first as to how it was structured. Because remember, we started... Some of the stuff was, like, so far out of here. Because some of these stuff didn't show up until you kind of expanded. Some of the stuff was so far out there that I was like, what the heck? Why is this so broken apart? This needs to be closer together. So there's that. Oh, one thing I do wish was different. I'm glad I figured, and I'm sorry, hopefully I didn't lose too many people watching this in those first, I don't know however many episodes. I wish that I could have more easily changed the lighting and the brightness, because if you remember the first few episodes, we'd go into a building and it was like middle of the day and I couldn't see anything. And it was a setting, I couldn't change the brightness. It was a setting I had to change on my PS5. Then I could go in and change it here. So that was one thing that was like a little kind of funky, but we got it worked out. Okay, I think that's about it as far as the details go. I didn't really use any of the abilities, honestly. Probably should have. But I think part of that was the way that I played the game, which was I went around and did so much of the side stuff prior to doing a lot of the story stuff. And through that, mission completion, artifacts, you know, occasional fights there, I leveled up to the point where once I got to the story where I would fight some harder villains, I was already pretty strong. But if you remember, I think I did the axe throws a little bit, then I did this kick thing here lately. But the arrow stuff, I think the only thing I used was the wolf. I think that was the only one I used there, so I didn't really use those too much. Oh, I am glad about this too when we talk about the enemies and the combat. But look, I'm talking for 40 minutes on this review. Sorry, guys. The one thing I did like, or do like, and they've done this now, the last few at least I know, is I like the fact that they have certain types of enemies, enemies located in certain parts of the map that have an assigned strength and whatever, and that's what their strength and thing is. I hate the games that do that scaling thing, whereas I get stronger and I get more things, they do too. Because it's like, well, what's the point of me even upgrading all my crap if it's going to be, if I'm level 100 and it's just as difficult to fight this guy when I'm level 100 as it would have been when I'm level 4. Like, I've never understood games that do that, and it's frustrating. So I'm glad that they didn't do that. I'm glad that they allowed for hey, listen, you could try to fight this guy if you want, but you're going to get slaughtered. But you level up, you come back, and now you're strong enough to take him. Give me that all day, every day, versus the other stuff. All right, so those are some of the details about the game. So taken as a whole, I really, really enjoyed this game. I would be tempted, and I may actually do this, which I know not everybody would agree with this. This very well could be my favorite Assassin's Creed game. And I say that with, see, here's the thing now with the Assassin's Creed series. The games of these games now, because the series has been around for so long, you have to start. It's almost hard to compare some of them with each other. It's complete in a lot of ways. This fox needs to go away. In a lot of ways, you know, you really have to kind of step back and almost handicap some of the games a little bit when you compare them, because it is completely unfair for in certain things to compare this game versus the first Assassin's Creed game, or even the second Assassin's Creed game, which was a huge leap forward in terms of everything. But because a lot of people, you know, I mean, I think the things that I think you can compare are things like story, you know, character development, character, you know, performances, you know, just some things like, you know, that you can compare that over games. But like, yeah, graphically, you put this game up against, you know, even Assassin's Creed's game from not too long ago. You know, even if you just say, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, yeah, this is going to look a lot better because it's just, that's how technology progresses. So it's unfair to put this game up against the first Assassin's Creed game and be like, look how bad the first Assassin's Creed game looks. Well, yeah, that looks bad in context when you're comparing it to a game that comes out, you know, I don't know, when the 13, 14 years later, or whatever it's been. Of course it's going to not look as good. And of course there's going to be limitations as far as within the game what you can have, within the, you know, all the side stuff and things, you know, it is going to be different. But I think accounting for all of that, and I don't think it's recency, you know, because I do think, and I'm going to kind of rate my Assassin's Creed games here for you. I think I would put this one at number 1. I think I really would. I also liked. I mean, I think like most people. I mean, there, you know, the Ezio trilogy had some good stuff in it. You know, I never quite hung on to that the way that other people did as far as every game. Like, some people think that was peak Assassin's Creed and it's gone downhill ever since. And I don't agree with that. Now, I think there's been games since then that haven't been maybe as good. But I wouldn't continue to hold those up on kind of the pedestal that some people do when we talk about Assassin's Creed series. But I would probably put this one at 1. Then again, some of the other ones, it's, you know, I maybe bunch them up a little bit. I liked Black Flag. I did. I liked Black Flag. I thought Kenway was a very interesting character. The setting was neat. And again, I think that was different too, because it really just it was the first time you had that ability to. I thought it was really cool too, the fact that we could do the rivers here and all the rivers and navigate that. That was cool. It was a nice little spin on what you saw with Odyssey, which was you go between the islands. But even that wasn't original for Odyssey. You first saw that kind of thing in Black Flag, where you went around the Caribbean, and that was kind of unique and everything. But I liked Black Flag. quite a bit. A game that I always thought never got its due, but I always thought was a pretty good one, because it kind of came out sort of almost at the same time as Black Flag, around the same time, I thought, was Rogue. I always thought that Rogue was an underrated game. And, you know, I'm not saying that's my favorite, but that's just one I'm kind of throwing out there as far as games that I liked. I almost need to like pull up like the list of all the games and kind of look through them. I should have done that before we did that. Before we did all that. I think too, for me, when we talk about the rating of the games, you know, one of the complaints with the Assassin's Creed games is when they come out, they tend to be buggy. Especially, obviously, Unity was ripped apart for that. And so you know, even this game, I waited for it was out a little bit to play, so I kind of worked that out. So, you know, my experience on some of the games was very different. So, my experience of Unity was much more positive than most. Well, I should say, but a lot of people's, because I just simply waited so long to play it, where they had all that stuff kind of ironed out. I do like to switch away from the pure city settings, and I think that's why I liked a little bit from Assassin's Creed 3, because that was the first time in significance you were able to kind of step out from the city setting. And obviously the game, again, obviously this game is even very different than the Assassin's Creed 3. I like the Assassin's Creed 3 setting, but I think I like that game more than most people, but that one, I felt like there could have been more there. You know, so I wouldn't necessarily put that one way at the top. Unity, Syndicate were just sort of okay in my mind. I think that the decision that was made with Origins to really revamp it, I thought was a good one. I thought the series needed it at that point. I thought it modernized it a little bit more, which was good. Of the more recent 3 games, I think, in my opinion, I've liked each one of them more than the last. So I've liked Valhalla better than Odyssey, and I liked Odyssey better than Origins. Some of that's the setting. Ancient Egypt, even though it wasn't, I shouldn't say ancient Egypt, but because you did have the Caesar component, but Egypt isn't as interesting to me as the Viking Age and the England during the, you know, with Wessex and Northumbria and Mercia and all that. I like this setting better, and same thing with Odyssey. That time period with the Greeks and stuff is just not as interesting to me as the setting we're in now. So I would say this is probably my favorite Assassin's Creed game that's come out. Still love this series. But I think this game is for me, this game is very indicative of how I would describe Assassin's Creed to people when they ask about some things. Assassin's Creed is one of my, easily one of my top couple favorite franchises, I should say, maybe that's a better way, franchises of all time. It really is. But at no point would I ever say that maybe any individual game within that is in my top 10 ever. I don't know where this game would rank in my top 10. I don't know if I'd have to go through and make a list of where this would fall as far as individual game. But you know, like I referenced Black Flag. Black Flag might be my second favorite game in the Assassin's Creed series. So Assassin's Creed series, you think about, that's one of my top franchises ever of all time that I like. Within that, my second favorite game, there's nowhere, it doesn't even sniff the top 10 of favorite games. So I think the Assassin's Creed series for me is a situation where, you know, the individually it's better as a group than it is maybe as an individual kind of game, you know. And now this game, I really did like this. I did like this game a lot. So that's that. Now, okay. Boy, I talked for 45 minutes. That's crazy. So I'm sad that the game's over. I am. I really enjoy this game. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm definitely sad to see us bring it to the end. However, it's not quite the end, because as you can see, we do have now, when we started this game, so this, you know, if you really care to look at the calendar, if you were watching this, when I started this game, Wrath of the Druids was out, DLC. Siege of Paris was not. During the recording of this series, Siege of Paris did come out. And I touched on this before. I will be doing Wrath of the Druids and Siege of Paris as their own series. So that's how we're going to do that moving forward. I think I could have done Asgard and I could have done Jotunheim as their own series as well, probably, as I mentioned, because I think those were very DLC stuff. But I think those were part of the main game, so that's why I kept them. The Wrath and Siege, those are completely, you know, you're playing, I think you're playing as Eivor still, but that didn't impact the main storyline, so that's why I'm going to do those kind of separately. And we'll also do that for any additional DLC stories like that come along. If the DLC is, you know, not like that, not something like that where we're not going to a new place or whatever, you know, those we won't do those. But you know, something like Siege of Paris, I have no idea how long they are, so they could be pretty short series. I mean, again, it's a DLC, so you're not going to get, I wouldn't think, you're not going to get another 50-hour sort of thing. You know, maybe, you know, I think somewhere 10 to 20 hours would be very strong, I think. You know, I think back to some of the other, like, The Witcher. I think Witcher. So one of the reasons we talk about Assassin's Creed revamping it, I think they were very heavily influenced by the success of Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, because that I think really influenced a lot of games when how well that was received and how they did some things in there. I think really made some people step back and say, "Whoa, this is a better way to do things." That game had a couple DLCs. Blood and Wine, I think, was one, and Hearthstone. I think I could be completely wrong on those, but those were like I haven't played that in years now, but those felt like those were like games unto themselves. Those DLCs were massive. It felt like, and so I don't know. Will these DLCs be kind of that length or not? But anyways, so this doesn't have to be the end of our journey with AC Valhalla and Eivor, if you don't want it to be. So while it's sad that we've ended the main story, if you want to see more of this, more of the character, more of this, we can. It's out there. It's going to be out there with the 2 DLCs and any additional ones that come along the way. So yeah, you know, if you want to see more, we got more with this. But I think I've talked enough about. I was worried about filling the time on this. I ended up making it longer than some episodes we did. I think that's it, though. I'm probably sure I'll think of stuff as soon as I as soon as we get off here, I'll think of more stuff. Curious to see what the direction they go with Assassin's Creed moving forward. Thinking about what time frames haven't we visited? Where are they going to take us next? What's that going to look like? So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to what's next. Again, love Assassin's Creed. Love this game. Well done, guys that worked on this. You did a really, really good job. Loved it. Really did. Again, as I said, best in my mind, for my money, this is the best Assassin's Creed game that you've put out. So I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, it took 173 episodes, I think, is what it took us, right? Is that how long it was? Crazy. In some ways, it feels like we've been playing this a long time. In other ways, in other aspects, it feels like I just feel like we just started. It feels like we're back in Norway and we're, telling pops that we're leaving. So it's weird. Some ways it feels like we just started. In other ways, it's like yeah, we've been doing this a while. So that's about all I got, I think. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed. I really, really like this. I really, really like the story. So definitely sad to have it ending. But again, we've got the DLC stuff that we're going to be diving into next, and whatever happens next with the Assassin's Creed series. Looking forward to it. So, anyways, I appreciate. Listen, it's crazy enough to think that some people watch simply an episode. If you've watched 173 episodes of me babbling along, we need to get a best friend necklace or something, because that is hats off to you if you've stuck with me for 173 episodes of this game. Hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did, because I really, really enjoyed it. Sadly, though, that is going to bring an end to our series, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Lots of other stuff out there on the channel, though. So feel free to check all that stuff out. Either way, I appreciate you stopping by. But that's it. That's an end. So for the last time, last time. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We're done. We're done. But Wrath of the Druids, Siege of Paris, come back, see it. Check out the other stuff. And yeah, thanks again. Come on back, and we'll see you somewhere else.